What's up guys, it's the most consistent builder-based Clash of Clans YouTuber here, back with another Clash of Clans video. In today's video we're going to be doing a tier list on the builder-based troops, as well as an upgrade guide and which ones you should be prioritizing your upgrades on. Now quickly before the video begins, I just want to give like a quick update on where I've been, because as you guys can see, I haven't uploaded in a very long time. Basically I've just been off at college, finished my first semester here at Colorado, and now that I'm kind of settled in, I've decided, now might be a good time to start making some videos again. I wasn't really able to do it before because I had a roommate, but he's now moving out because his parents moved out here, so I'm finally able to kind of get some more privacy recording. Another reason I just haven't really been uploading as well is because, I don't know, the game has been getting really stale. I mean, you may have noticed a lot of YouTubers have been quitting, like King Bob. I mean, he hasn't uploaded in a couple months as well, and overall there's just been a lot of breaks from other YouTubers. The builder-based meta right now is just kind of stale, and just the game is overall not in a great state, but that may change in the future. Now, I can't promise I'm going to be Mr. Consistent and get out a video every day, but I'll try my best, and right now we're going to start off with this tier list to hopefully get back into the swing of things. Anyway, so here we have all the troops in the game right now, as well as the heroes, which I'm going to be ranking as well. And I'm just going to kind of give you an idea of which troops are the best, which ones you should be upgrading first. And I'm also going to be giving some potential nerfs and buffs that may happen in the future, which may also affect your decision making. And let's just jump right into it. Right off the bat, we got Baby Dragon. Now, the Baby Dragon was really good back in the earlier seasons until it got a nerf. It's still extremely good troop, don't get me wrong. However, it is a lot less viable to use with cannon carts now in this current meta, as well as there's just better strategies to use in the meta, so you won't see a lot of mass Baby Dragon spam. However, there are still people using it, including myself. I do use mass Baby Dragons with like maybe a cannon cart or something. They're still completely usable. I do think they have a place in the meta. Their splash may be a little bit weaker, but I still think it is a very good troop. You can use it in many different ways, but I find that they are best when paired with cannon carts. Still to this day, they are still good. So I'm going to be putting them in the good tier. Top of good tier, I don't think they're broken. I don't think they need a nerf or a buff. I think they're pretty good in state. Maybe a buff just a little bit so they can take out the lava launcher. Otherwise, I think they're pretty good in their current state. Now, I'm going to save the heroes for later, so let's move on to the beta minion. Now, this troop's an interesting one. You might think that it's like a broken troop because you see them used with dropships all the time. So you might be like, oh my god, minions are so fucking good, they should be broken. In reality, they're not very good. I mean, besides with dropships, they're pretty useless. I mean, you can see it being used with cannon carts to snipe over walls instead of using archers, so they are kind of good for that. However, it doesn't always take out the arch tower, and there can be air mines. So I'm going to put minions in probably like the okay tier. I mean, I do not think they need a buff in this current meta because the dropships are, we'll talk about that later, but they're pretty good. And I don't think they it's really hard to tweak the minions to nerf dropship minions without making minions just completely useless. So for now, we're going to be putting in the okay tier. I just think it's very it's a very situational troop. You're not going to be using it in pretty much any way except with dropships, which is the only way they're viable. Anyway, next up we have the bomber, and the bomber is going to go into the good tier. We'll say probably right by the Baby Dragon. Now, the reason why the bomber is not broken is because, I mean, there is another troop in here that basically does what the bomber does, but better. Now, in this current meta, I just don't think it works as well when there's other strategies you can use. I still think bombers are great for opening up the base. However, they're just kind of like weak on HP, and the push trap is always there that could potentially ruin your raid. But overall, I mean, it's just good to use with Pekkas and giants. They're not really used for anything else. There's no other strategies I can really think that use bombers other than Pekkas, and there's better strategies to use with Pekkas than with the bomber. So I'm going to be putting the good tier because I still see people using it to this day. Like, it's still good. It's just used a lot less frequently. So I think it's in a decent spot right now. Next up, we have the Boxer Giant, and this one's also going to be going in the good tier. Once again, it is good to be paired up with Pekkas, bombers, giants. It's a great strategy. It still works pretty well to this day. Like I said, there are better strategies out there, but I still think the giant is good because it can do an immense amount of tanking for the Pekkas and the bombers. So it's still a great troop. It's not very versatile in other strategies. You can't really use it in many other strategies other than with Pekkas. I mean, you can use it with cannon carts if you want to tank for like the lava launcher. Pretty rare you see that. You don't see that really in this current meta, but it is usable. All right, next up we have cannon cart, and I'm going to be putting that in the broken tier. Now, I don't think cannon carts are broken by any means. I mean, All it really takes is one little push trap and your entire raid is fucked up. But I think the amount of value you can get with cannon carts on the first and second stage is just unmatched. There is no other troop in this game that can get as much value other than the copter as a cannon cart. It is so good. However, due to the fact that they are low on HP, a defense locks in on it, I can't really put it as like the best troop, but you will be seeing cannon carts pretty much used in every single raid on the second stage. It's pretty much a must use if you want to take out the second stage successfully when you're using spam strategies in the first stage. They are most notably seen with Pekkas and Dropships and minions, as well as just cannon carts and baby dragons, or cannon carts, baby dragons, archers. They can be used in pretty much any strategy, especially in the second stage. They can be used every strategy in the second stage. I don't think they need a buff or a nerf. I think they're pretty good in its current state. I just think people think it's broken because no one really traps for cannon carts as much anymore, so they have become a bit stronger in the meta. However, like I said, I don't think they're broken. Next up, we have the dropship, and I almost want to create a separate tier for dropships because these are by far the best troop in the game. Doesn't even come close. Dropships are insanely good because it essentially does the role of what a giant does and a bomber does combined into one. It is just so unbelievably strong. You can break open max level walls with a level 14 dropship. That just gives you an idea how good they are. I would say they're just better at opening up the base than bombers. And while you still get that HP value, it still tanks. It also drops skeletons on the ground, which can distract, like double cannons and stuff. It honestly is just a really good troop because of its hit points and the amount of damage it does with a bomb and how it opens up the base completely. You're most commonly going to see the dropship used paired with Pekkas or minions. That's the current meta at the moment. It's pretty skillless, but I mean, there are ways you can use it to make it a little bit more skillful and a bit more deadly. I do kind of like dropships in this current meta. I just think they need to be tweaked in a way where it's not going to be completely useless because they currently go for defenses, while in the past they didn't, which is a night and day difference. If they go for defenses, it's able to open up the base, and if they don't go for defenses, it basically is pretty much useless. I think my best advice to balancing out the dropship will be probably nerfing the HP. That way, it's not just completely tanking every single defense, because it has a lot of HP. Like it takes a lot of defenses to take out just one of them. So when you have 4 dropships and 2 camps of minions, it's pretty much just going to sweep the entire base. And I think the only way of preventing that from happening is by nerfing its HP, just so that it doesn't do as much tanking while still keeping the bomb util. Unfortunately, at the moment, that's all I can really think of. I mean, I think the bomb damage is fine. I like that it opens up the base. I think it can be used for some creative attacks. It really just needs a little bit tweaking to be probably in the broken tier, but not nearly as broken as it currently is. Anyway, next up, we have the Electro Fire Wizard. And this one, I'm probably going to be putting in the tier, you know. Now I know there's going to be some people who disagree with me. Now, however, I really just don't think they're useful in this current meta. Most bases will always take into account about Electrofire Wizards. All it really takes to stop the Electrofire Wizard is separating your defenses and creating enough space in between it where it can't get any chain value. If you do that on your base, which pretty much every base nowadays does that, it's going to be pretty useless. It's an extremely situational troop, and I would say it's only useful if the value is there. Otherwise, I don't really see a purpose for it in its current meta. I can't really think of any great ways to buff it. I mean, it's good at what it does. The only way I could think maybe buffing it would be when it dies, the chain continues to go through. I think that'd be a bit more fair. However, that's not going to be a life-changing movement in its position on the tier list. To be honest, you'll rarely even see players use this. I think I saw one player use this a couple months ago pretty consistently. They no longer play, and it's no longer that useful. It was only really useful with giants, but I mean, no one really uses it anymore. All right, next up, we have Hogs. Now, Hogs, I'm going to be putting them in the okay tier, just because I think they're a bit more viable than Electrofire Wizards. There's going to be more situations you can use them in. For example, some people use them with Pekkas to stun crushers and double cannons, and some people use them second stage to stun Teslas or cannons or something, and it helps clean up the base pretty quickly. It's kind of hard to use mass hog gliders in this current meta. I mean, there are some bases they can be used on. It's just you have to be pretty skilled to successfully pull off a hog glider attack. That's why I don't think they're completely useless. If you know how to use them, they can be very powerful. However, on a majority of bases, they're just not the best pick to use. There's better strategies to use currently. And for our next troop, we have Night Witches, and they are the fucking worst troop in the game. This troop is horrible. There is no use for them. This troop, there's literally, I can't even think of one scenario where they're going to be useful. I accidentally brought one in an attack, and I thought, oh, you know, this attack's still going pretty well. Maybe this Night Witch can clutch up. No, it has no HP. The bats are not raged for nearly long enough, and all it takes is one air mine to take out the entire bats. Overall, it's just a very useless troop, and I really can't see a way as to how they would buff it other than making the bats raged the entire time. I don't know why the timer is so short. I don't know why they go away so quickly. Maybe some more bats being spawned in perhaps can make it better. Maybe a slight HP buff. I really just think they do need to be tweaked a lot if they want to be even remotely viable in this current meta. Next up, we have the Raged Barbarian, and I'm probably just going to be putting this in the tier because they only really have one use, and that's checking for traps or Teslas. Primarily on the second stage, that's what I use them for if I have an extra slot. It's pretty nice to use because you can also clear out a lot of buildings while checking for traps and keeping your cannon cards safe. Mostly, you're never going to use this troop alone. It's going to be accompanying another troop in order to like support it, and honestly you just don't see that many people using them. Maybe someone uses on the first stage to check for Teslas. It's kind of hard though since you want all 6 of your army camps to fully take out the base. I only use them personally for traps on the second stage, which is why I don't think they're absolute garbage. I think they're good at what they do. It's just you're never going to be using them as your primary troop. All right, next up we have archers, and I'm going to be putting this at the bottom of good tier. Now, I can see arguments for why it can be okay tier. I think anything lower than okay is just kind of criminal. Archers can kind of just do what Barbs do, but better. They can check for traps. They have a cloak ability, so they can take out archer towers and cannon cart strategies. They can take out air bombs for baby dragon strategies. They're overall good for just picking off buildings, especially second stage, like if you want to pick off maybe the multi-mortar or something or an archer tower with them. And it also checks for traps pretty nicely. Now, I put it at the bottom of good tier because it's more like a troop that you use with other strategies. It's not a primary troop. However, it's a very good supporting troop, which is why I believe it belongs in the good tier. Lastly, we have Pekkas, which I'm going to be putting in the broken tier. Now, I am going to be putting it lower in cannon carts just because the value on cannon carts is unmatched. It is such a good troop. However, Pekkas are still a phenomenal troop as well. They have a bunch of HP, they do a bunch of damage, and their ability is extremely overpowered because it can basically do an explosion in a small radius, taking out a lot of defenses and stunning them. Now, most of the times you're going to be seeing Pekkas used with dropships, or you're going to see Pekkas used with bombers and giants, and overall, it's just a great troop. It's a pretty simple troop. You don't really need to know a lot or have a lot of skill to use them. They're pretty straightforward. All you do is you just throw them down and explode buildings. I don't think they're in need for a buff or a nerf. I think they're great as is. However, I still think a lot of people would consider them broken, which is why I'm putting in that tier, because overall it's a great troop. All right, now with all the troops out of the way, we're going to be doing the 2 heroes. And first off, we have the copter, which in my opinion is broken tier. Now, people at lower builder halls will be like, oh, why is it so high up? It does shit. I have a level 15 battle copter. It does no damage. Well, when you get to level 35, you'll see what I'm talking about. A lot of people don't understand how to use the battlecopter. Its primary use is to take out a large portion of the base in order to make cleaning up the rest of the base a lot easier. For example, you could see a double cannon and a lowered archer tower right next to each other. You can throw the copter on that side of the base, taking out all the buildings on the outside while taking out those 2 buildings, thus making it easier for Pekkas and dropships or Pekkas to clean up the rest of the base because the copter took care of both of those buildings. A lot of people like to argue that the chain value on the battle machine is unmatched, which is why the copter isn't as good. However, the copter's range is really what makes it good. If you keep it away from the air expo, it has so much potential to get a ridiculous amount of percentage on the base. Thus is why I put it in the broken tier. And as for the battle machine, I'm just going to be putting it in the good tier. You know, I don't see as many people use battle machine first stage anymore, primarily because the current meta is extremely spammy, and it's better just to use the copter because the amount of value you get, it's easier to use these spam strategies with. However, that's not to say that the battle machine isn't extremely powerful on the second stage, which is why I like to use the copter first stage, because the battle machine is better on the second stage. Most of the time on the second stage, you're going to be seeing 5 firecrackers, so the copter has very limited use, which is why I don't like to reuse it on the second stage. I think the battle machine is great on the second stage because of its chain value. For example, if you use some cannon carts to take out some outer buildings like cannons, double cannons, the battle machine can pretty much just clean up the rest of the base on its own with its triple charge ability. And now for the upgrade path, this is going to be strictly Builder Hall 10. I'm just going to make an assumption and say that you have all level 18 troops and you're trying to figure out what you should upgrade next and what's going to be the best thing to upgrade. Now, the first thing I think that you should max out if you're a newer player is probably the dropship. Realistically, the dropship is probably going to get nerfed, and I'm not sure how hard it's going to get nerfed, but if it gets nerfed how I'm predicting it, it could still be a viable troop. I think the dropship is an extremely simple troop to use, and it goes great with Pekkas and minions, which is nice because that's only 2 troops that you have to upgrade in order to use an effective strategy. I would just say upgrade the dropship first and then follow up with Pekkas or minions and learn how to use one of those strategies. Next, I would definitely be upgrading the cannon cart. The cannon cart, though it is a hard troop to use, the amount of value you can get with it is just, like I said, unmatched from any other troop in this game, and it is an extremely powerful troop that you want to have maxed out. Next up, I'm going to be recommending the baby dragon, just because its splash value is very powerful, and you can take out a lot of big buildings using 2 baby dragons, which is why I think it's paired up very well with cannon carts, and it's still going to have some use second stage if you do want to use it with some spam strategies. It's a great troop to upgrade. Next up, I would say upgrade the archer. Honestly, if you ever wanted to learn cannon carts, archers are pretty crucial to have with cannon carts because most of the time you're going to need them to take out archer towers, and only using baby dragons and cannon carts might not cut it. Most of the time it does in this current meta, but having archers upgraded is pretty important too. The next troop I'm going to recommend upgrading is the bomber. This is if you want to branch off into using Pekkas and giants as opposed to just dropships. However, at this point, a lot of these troops, it doesn't really matter if you have max or not. You can pretty much just get by with all the troops I've mentioned previously. This is if you want to expand your army compositions. Then I would upgrade the giant because you can use bombers and Pekkas as is, but if you just use giant and Pekka, it's not going to work. But I would definitely advise upgrading the giant after so that the bomber, giant, and Pekka strategy is available to you. Alright, and finally, you have the hog gliders and barbs. You can use them in any way you want. If you're just looking to only bait for traps, I would upgrade the barbs first over hogs, but if you actually do want to use hogs potentially in some future strategies, upgrade the hogs. Lastly, you should be upgrading the electro fire wizard after all this because it still does offer some use. However, you're rarely going to be using it in any strategies. And honestly, the night witch, you don't even have to upgrade. You can go your entire builder based career not having the Night Witch upgraded, and you won't even notice a single difference, unless maybe you're a lower builder hall. I think they're useful at lower builder halls. However, at builder hall 10, they are by far the worst troop in the game, no doubt about it. And now moving on to the heroes, you probably want to be upgrading your heroes as you're upgrading the troops. Once you're upgrading to about baby dragon area, you want to make sure your heroes are being your primary focus point because the battlecopter and battle machine complement these strategies nicely. In my opinion, I would advise upgrading your copter first. Having a max level copter makes a giant difference as opposed to level 15 copter. And honestly, I've used a lower level battle machine on one of my mini accounts, and it really doesn't make that big of a difference. I kind of just use it for a second stage cleanup, so it's not as useful to me. However, I would upgrade this as well. I would say have this at least within 5 levels of your battlecopter. So if your battlecopter is level 20, have your battle machine level 15 or something like that. Just make sure you're kind of getting it upgraded with the battlecopter. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys forgot the order of upgrading the troops, I will have it linked down below in the description so that you can figure out what order you want to upgrade your troops in. I will also have a defense guide linked in the description if you are curious as to what defense you should be prioritizing. Like I said, I'll link that video in the description. Check the description. I have a more up-to-date guide in the description if you are curious as to what defenses you should be upgrading. Once again, like I said, I'm sorry for kind of leaving the community for 6 months. I mean, I've always been kind of around in Clash of Clans. I just kind of took a break from my YouTube because of college. And I definitely can't promise I'm going to be uploading regularly, but I will try to get out a video like at least once a month, I imagine. We'll see how it goes, but there aren't a lot of videos to make on Builder Base right now just because the game is in a very stale point. Anyway, if you did enjoy the video, please drop a like, subscribe. It means a lot to me. And yeah, that's about it. Peace.